You're listening to The Practice of a Hoodoo Baptist, my personal journey of root work, faith, and ancestral wisdom. This is where I honor the ones who came before me, share what's been passed down, and walk you through my experiences of being unapologetically aligned, covered by spirit, guided by blood. Today, we have a very special guest. We have the People's Oracle, y'all, Dayna Lynn Nuckolls. Creator of Divination for Liberation Sidereal Astrology. We're going to tap into that. The Divination for Liberation podcast and 9 editions of her annual Sidereal Astrology Guide. Dayna weaves the political into the personal. Super necessary. Her work as a diviner, writer, and teacher has been described as sanity-making, naming with specificity, and predicting with accuracy the experiences of individuals and the collective as a means to political, spiritual, and emotional liberation. Pretty much that means she gets the girls together. Welcome, Dayna. How are you?
I am so good and I'm so excited to be here. I'm just very happy to have this conversation with you. And I feel like it's kind of like divine timing, like we've been orbiting towards this. And so
Absolutely.
we're here.
Absolutely. We are here because I have been waiting. You have been on my list for a kiki for some time, mainly due to, first of all, the content is gold. And I'm not saying it like, because I know it's anything could be and everything. Too much is content nowadays. But I do appreciate your content for different reasons, and also even the times where you may, whether it's a live or just some people may call it a rant, or just you expressing yourself about anything random from politics to pop culture, which is something I think with pop culture it's a little too much of that of a push on social media. But I love a take that's all the way to the left or just a different take. For example, there was a moment a while back, everybody was kissing Cat Williams' ass. And I personally was like rolling my eyes because I experienced a couple people like within this. I just don't like to partake in celebrity culture. I do live in Los Angeles, so it's like some things I see that end up on social that don't end up on social. But for the most part, a lot of folks' favorites I give a side eye to in real life. There was a time when people were kissing Cat Williams' butt, and I loved the video that you put out where you definitely point out his participation in capitalism and how he's weaving that to make it seem like he knows, one, what he's talking about, period. And also that it is only right to view him as a leader and no one else. Like, don't listen to this other person. And it was really interesting because I'm like, whoa, it's cool that she peeped that, even if she's not even in the entertainment industry or even within like the comedy culture, the comedy community, because that's where I peeped that behavior first. Not just from him in real life, but from another comedian, actor, so on entertainment. Them like pushing that onto people is and whether it's another Black person or a Black woman, and it's encouraged. So I love that, and I sent it to one of my friends. I have a few friends who are comedians, but I sent them to one of my friends who's a comedian, and then my partner is also in the space, and they were like, "Wow, like yeah, because he fooling niggas."
I think it's for me, it's really about like, who do we position as trustworthy and in positions of authority in society?
Yeah.
And it's a question that I like to ask because I think it is something that we do implicitly, is something that we do passively. And a lot of my work is just about like, hey, come stand over here and look at it from right here, which is that for
Facts.
him, like his whole statement was that somehow he was especially chosen by God to be the accumulator of this wealth because God just knew he
New.
was going to do something with this money that benefited people. And it really sounds good. It
Yeah.
sounds noble. It sounds holy. It sounds like the right thing to believe about yourself. But to me, it just read as like the question I always ask is, why do you get to be the determiner of who has enough? Such that when you don't have it, do they now not have enough? Or if you decide that you changed your belief systems or your values or who you like or who you don't like, and now they are no longer the benefactors of your grace and your abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And while I understand that in capitalism, because of the way that it is, there are poor people. There are going to be poor people, and we have to share and we have to alleviate the suffering of people as much as we can. It is inherently a problem to believe that we needed somebody like Cat Williams. No, we needed for all of the wealth and resources to not be hoarded in the hands of a few people because there is more than enough for everyone. And people are wise enough and smart enough to figure out what they need for themselves, and they don't need some rich person to tell them that they're worthy of security and stability materially.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's something we could say this about a lot of individuals, and I'm not about to center men, so don't y'all worry, because this is not what this is. Nor
He
am I
said,
about to center
disclaimer.
celebrity. Yeah, I'm not about to center celebrities. But it is, to me, it is a necessary conversation because they're just pinpointed as like leaders or just the voices, which I just don't think a lot of,
Like
but
they
most
got
of the
some
time.
secret key to the universe. It's just like,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know about that.
Yeah, and I don't want no parts in that. I don't want to participate in that. I don't believe in that. And no, I don't these people don't speak for me. But it is something that just been paying attention to like the last year of, folks saying like, well, he said this and now it's all come to light. And, he opened the
Right. Like he's some
door.
kind of prophet.
And I'm like, how do we
Like,
get
hold up,
here?
everybody. Yeah,
How
hold
do we
up.
get here? Do we not remember him slapping a Target employee? I'm like, I'm sorry.
Ugh. Or
Anywho,
them old nasty trans jokes that he just could
yeah,
not help himself. Like, you're
yeah.
funny. You don't have to do that. Like,
You re-
you're funny. Like, why?
exactly. Exactly. And you do not have to spread hate. You don't have to participate in
Mm.
racism. And you don't have to do none of the things. So yeah, it's just certain things like that when I have people in my life where that's what they do and it's honest work and they can tell a joke without harming anybody. They can, do a skit and make people think or think more without cursing or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just
Just
like,
throwing the low hanging fruit up under the bus,
for sure, for sure. I don't let's get into you, sis, because I do want to take this as a chance to get to know you and also for people to understand more about divination. If you may not know, with this podcast, I have been just feeling super inspired to just have a space that I didn't really see online, but more so just a space for folks to be educated about certain topics that have either been like demonized, bastardized, or just always, there's always like a white voice leading the
Mm.
conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm really not trying to add more to that. And so I wanted this to not just to be different, but actually to be impactful. And I think a lot of folks from looking at social media and even like in real life spaces, whether I'm at a church or a retreat, there's always this love-hate relationship, it seems to be, with tools of divination, specifically tools of divination that Black people have or that Black people participate in. Even folks with brown bias, we say Black and brown people, but we're talking specifically about our folks. But yeah, it's like we're not given the right to just simply express ourselves, and to use the tools that have been here way before we were even like, thought of. So it was super important for me to have you talk about divination. Now, my first question I do want to understand how you first came to understand divination. Um, and not just maybe like not just as a personal practice, but also as a political one.
Yeah, I think that first of all, for me, shout out to ancestors like James Cone, God of the Oppressed, and all of the people who have talked about Black spiritualities and Black spiritual technologies in these nuanced ways. Because the genesis of Blackness is in the imagination of white people, right? Like, this is not something that's inherent to who we are. It was something that was created to place us in a position of power, relative to the power of whiteness, right? Subservient to that. And so for me, so much of how spirituality and spiritual technologies, which divination I think falls in that category, really comes from how do I harness power when I am disenfranchised in the material realm? When I do not have access to the economy in an equitable way, when I am subject to various forms of violence and harm, when I'm living in apartheid, when I am enslaved, when I am treated unhuman, where is my power coming from? I can't vote, right? I can't boycott. I cannot go to the court, right? Because all of those things historically have been places that we've been barred from justice and access. And so for me, as a Black person in America, descendant of slaves, for me, spirituality is always connected to liberation because so much of our identity here is as an oppressed class. So divination for me as a spiritual technology is inherently liberatory, right? It's inherently that way because the tools and technologies like hoodoo, right,
Mhm.
are coming from this place of resourcefulness. I have to use whatever is at my hands. And I have this Bible, and I may not believe in the Jesus the way that they do,
Mhm.
right? But there's something in it for me. I have these roots, I have these leaves, I have these stars, I have my dreams, right? Because those are the tools that we have outside of the systems that we are just disenfranchised in.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's really hard defending that sometimes. I'll be honest. Sometimes it can be really hard defending defending our rights, defending our resources, even defending our truth. I come from a long lineage of hoodoo practitioners, mainly on my mother's side. Um, some of them were white passing, some of them were more Native American, brown complexion. Some of them um, went to church, still went to church, but however, at home, we're taking care of people that hospitals would not take care of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, taking care of folks who are in the church and still wanting, a healing, a treatment, something, because I mean, we have to be honest, like hospitals were not always accessible or welcoming to folks. And and even when bringing that up and talking about even like holistic practices, between like even in practicing hoodoo, like talking about like foods that we're eating, herbs that we're growing, even that is labeled as demonic. And even people connecting, associating like, oh, if you're into holistic eating, living, and you practice herbalism or you're carrying around herbs, then you must be looking forward to your daily horoscope. And
Mm.
all of that being for some reason under the umbrella as this is demonic, this is wrong, this is bad. I asked my mother, who's totally cool with me saying her age. My mom just turned 60. I asked her, I was like, hey, mom, because I had showed her a video of someone calling astrology demonic. And when I say my mama chuckled, really more so cackling, but she was like, how did y'all get here? And I was like, mom, when you were coming up, I was like, mom, who taught you astrology? And she was like, well, that was something that like grandmother taught, but also that was something like most of the elders like taught you because they taught you how special you are because of your birthday.
Mm,
And so she went on to say even in the ways and how they taught because astrology used to be in the newspaper when they would just print it, it would just be there, and that was something to look forward to, like, for to get kids more so into wanting to read the newspaper because it was
mhm.
like, "Oh, what does it say about me today?" That
Yeah,
type of
yeah.
thing. So she was like she remembers it being like this exciting thing to look forward to as a kid and then growing up and it just, being acceptable. Like, yeah, this is like our time and placement coming here on earth. These are these tools and gifts that we have based on that time and placement. And I was like, was it ever coming up, like, at some point that it was bad or demonic or even, like, at church? And she was like, "No, that's what I'm trying to understand."
How we got here.
How did y'all get here? And she was like, "Is this something that only the black folks are saying? Are the white people saying this too?" I was like, I was like, "Ma, I'm not on white TikTok. I don't know, don't know what they're saying." I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard a white person call astrology demonic, actually. That's a
Yeah,
really good question.
right. Cause I was like, "Ma, I don't know." I was like, "Because this is all I see from us, like, doing it to each other, bullying each other, saying you can't have this, if you do this, that's bad." And, and low key disarming, high key actually, disarming or trying to disarm people of their natural resources, knowledges, or anything that they may have been attached to since they were a kid. But I just thought that was so interesting, like from a generational perspective. I was like, this is crazy.
She said,
Now,
"That's brand new. I ain't heard that one before."
yeah. Yeah, she really was like, I'm sorry, but are these just us saying these things? Um, now I haven't because I did explain to my mother, which she said she knew this, but she was like, yeah, I never really got into sidereal, but I love talking about sidereal astrology. I love tapping in with folks, especially when they try to tell me who I am and what they think they know about me. And yeah, and just, it's like sometimes it's a part of like small talk, and sometimes, it's used to a negative light to bash a person, to bash men or whatever. And I'm just like, y'all, I don't feel like participating in this. And I found myself almost getting like an attitude where people will ask me and just being annoyed, like, I know I'm to the point when people say, "What's your sign?" I just say dollar,
Ty Dolla $ign.
dollar,
Or
currency,
yeah, that's
pesos, yen. Okay, man. And my best friend, he just be like Zelle, Cash App,
right.
Apple Pay, like because he's we just
Venmo.
yeah, exactly, Venmo, to tick people off. But let's tap into it because and I just want the girls to understand tropical. And we're not being against tropical astrology. Just want to make that clear. We're not like totally against it, but I do want you to explain your work with sidereal astrology and how did that come to be in your life, or has that always been in your life? Is that something that you were necessarily like brought onto first? Was there just a natural interest into astrology and sidereal just came to you and it's like, no, this feels right, this feels more aligned? So yeah, bring us in to your world.
So I like many people, I am what I call thoroughly black churched. Okay. I was born into a very churchy family, Pentecostal Assemblies of the World. And if you
Mm.
know, you know, that means that we get baptized in Jesus' name and not in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, and with evidence of speaking tongues. So I was fully black churched in a really beautiful way. I have often called my black church experience my spiritual initiation. Um, and at the same time that I was socially just covered in the church, and being taught those things, I've always been a dreamer. Like, ever since I was a little girl, and as I've gotten older, it's just gotten more and more intense.
Wow.
And for me, I'm going to be looking for myself in the spirituality and stories that I'm being taught. So I'm like, oh, Daniel dreamed. He was up in there with Nebuchadnezzar telling him, right? And for me, I think I've always been such a sincere person that I took those stories and I took those experiences kind of literally. Like when they told me that, or when the Bible says that the word is a living word, I was like, yes, it's alive right now. It's not just what's in that book. When they said it's a time and a season for all things, and then they went and listed all of the times and seasons that it was a time for, I was like, yeah, of course. And so it was in my very early or mid 20s that I got like a serious interest in astrology because I didn't know that it was something more than signs. And that's for most people.
Mhm.
Most people just think it's like, oh, astrology is this 12 signs that are correlated to your birthday. And when I really got into astrology, I was like, oh, it's 12 signs, but it's planets. Like, this
Mm.
is a whole astronomical based science that is so much more to know. And to be fair, I wasn't a person that just gave up my indoctrination immediately. I
Mhm.
had my own tussles with, is this sinful? Is this right? Is this
Mm.
wrong? I had elders in the church condemning me to hell. I had folks in my Facebook inbox back in the day telling me, asking me if it's sinful and if I'm going to hell. I had a pastor printing out stuff. I had somebody tell me that I was a witch. I talked about this on Amanda Seals' podcast a while back. Somebody told me that I was the reason the Holy Ghost wasn't coming down. They told me I had brought the spirit of witchcraft into these people's house where we were having church, and that I need to go and do all of these things to get the spirit of witchcraft out of my life. So that's why I thought your question, or your mom's question about like, are white people saying this to each other
Uh-huh.
as well? Because I've only experienced it from other Black people. And it's not to say I haven't been in white Christian spaces.
Right, right.
I just didn't get that same, like, I think white people are more explicitly racist in the things that they call demonic,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
They're more explicitly misogynistic. Like, white people's issue is with women stuff
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
things that are like very explicitly Black.
Mhm. Mhm.
So all of that to say, that was my journey almost 20 years ago now that I started an interest in astrology. I used to carry around a tote bag full of like charts that I would print because the internet was a thing, but, like, doing research on the internet was not really in vogue. Like, you still went to the library and checked out books. So I'm
Facts.
sure I checked out every book at the Harold Washington Library in Chicago with a homegirl of mine at the time. And I used to carry these books and just charts and anything I can get my hands on in this tote bag. And I was asking everybody their birthday. I was just collecting all of this data because I didn't know it then, but I know it now, is that I'm a pattern seeker. So I was trying to find the patterns between people's charts and make these correlations. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I'm I'm processing what you're saying, and I'm also, like, thinking about even my experience with astrology, because I would definitely say my mother taught me in a very, childlike way, probably similar to how she was taught, um, and
I think
to
it's fascinating that your mother even taught you astrology. Like, that is so mind blowing and like never heard that in my
Oh,
life,
really?
especially from a Black person.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, she when I showed her that and she just kind of, like, went into because I didn't know that her grandmother was totally fine with it, and then there were elders in the community that would encourage her to read the newspaper and be like, "Okay, what's your astrology say? Read me my zodiac," kind of a
You know what?
thing, you
Your
know?
mother is probably like 12 years younger than my parents. And
Uh,
maybe that's part of it too, because I feel like that would have really been like in the 70s, that really would have been the time where astrology was having, like, this cultural renaissance
Okay.
where people were really talking about it. Because I don't know, my
Yeah.
dad also grew up in a church where skating was a sin, so
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it is really interesting because yeah, I'm just thinking about like my experience. Yeah, it was never seen as anything like bad. If I had questions about it, like, she would always encourage me to read. Um which a lot of times I did go to the library to just, like, read more about it. I was very much into science, though, as a kid. I think that was
Mm,
more so, like, the big factor as a kid, is really being into science, colors, and seeing how all these things connect. Loved reading about animals, loved reading about planets, loved reading about like the discovery of new things
mm,
in space and how that connected to me. But so I took it seriously, but I never felt like I needed to make this like I needed to really embed this in my life. But however, I would say I never looked at it like this is wrong, this is bad, I don't need to pay attention to this at all. It's just simply there and a part of my life, and I always saw it as a tool, and it was all of this is connected to me. I'm not separated from this. Very similar to how I feel about nature or just growing up in Alabama, which is where I'm from originally. So most of my folks are all like, antebellum South. So I never felt weird about being outside, playing outside, climbing trees, farming, fishing,
mhm.
planting in the garden, herbal. It's just I never grew up separating any of this from me and thinking I'm above it or I don't need it.
But
And
you know what?
yeah,
That's actually such an important, I think, factor
mm-hmm,
as to how things become demonic in for Black people. Me
mm-hmm,
and my girlfriend were talking about this, that, like, around the time Sinners came out. She's
mm-hmm.
from Louisiana. I'm, a child of the Great Migration in the Midwest from Chicago, right? And we were talking about, excuse me, the way that the people who stayed in the South, there is this connection to land in the
Uh-huh.
material sense, and this connection to place in the material sense that, like, I don't think people from the North really have, right? That, like, living in New Orleans to me is like every single moment of every single day, you can see and witness and experience the way humans fight nature, because the water is going to come up between the cracks in the pavement. The pavement is going to sink. The trees and the greenery are going to wrap around your house and your fence, and the cats will be under your cars, and there will be turtles, and there will be raccoons. There's a peacock that lives around the corner from me, right? Like, there are ways that you don't have a choice but to remain connected to nature, to the earth. And when we think about the things that Black people call demonic, including astrology, including hoodoo, those are two things that are so irrevocably tied to being in this physical world that the only way that you survive by not doing that, I don't even know. 'Cause I don't know that we are surviving, to be honest, without
I was just about to
doing
say
that.
that.
Yeah.
I
And
was
by
just
that,
about to
I
say that.
mean in these spiritual practices and technologies that demand a really intimate awareness of how we are nature.
Yes,
We are not separate from it.
absolutely. And I'm constantly it's in my family. But on top of that, I'm constantly reminded of that because of the environment that, this world I was given and this environment that I'm in and how it's being like shifted, manipulated, and harmed. Like COVID, for example, which I'm sure you also talk about a lot. Um, and even for me, like with COVID, even now, I still take a COVID test, and I'm still talking to people who get COVID and they want to know, like, what do I do? I had a really interesting experience the first year of COVID the first summer, before there were even, options or a vaccination or anything. But one of my family members got terribly sick and came out with having pneumonia, and they sent her home to die. And that was a time where I, the, the spirit kicked in, and I just truly felt like I had to do something. It was my time to do something
Mm.
because they were going to pass. And they, even though they may have been comfortable passing because they just did not want to feel what they felt anymore, which I think is another thing. I think a lot of folks don't understand how people who had COVID and how they were in a lot of pain
They were
and dealing with
suffocating to
that. And
death.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, tapping it back into my practices through holistic medicine and herbalism, like that's what helped me save my family member, because they
Mm.
were definitely on their way out, and it was a really tough time for my family, for that side of the family, because everybody just wanted to pray about it. And I was like, yes, if that's all you can offer, sure, I'll take that. However, I'm flying down there, and I'm bringing her everything that I have to help her, and I'm not worried about being sick, because it's right now it's about really using my tools and resources, whether y'all agree with them or not. And let
Mm.
me show you, and really, exercising faith, which I tripped a lot of my family members out because they were like, you didn't think you were going to get sick. You just knew she was going to. I was like, look, I just had faith that everything was going to be okay. And I had faith that I had a lot of ancestors behind me, through my hands, behind me, traveling down, being on the plane, getting to her in the nick of time, and just helping her get through it. Because it was such a scary time, because, in that first year, didn't nobody know what the hell was going on.
We didn't know if it was gonna blow down your face, down your neck, fall from the sky. We didn't know where
Right.
it was coming from.
You really didn't. And it was super scary. And yeah, lots of
Yeah.
fear and anxiety. But when I got that call from spirit and from the ancestors, I was just like, yeah, I have to do this, because I don't have time to be scared.
Mm.
And I just felt super grateful in that moment for my upbringing, for just my placement in my family, for the people in my life who were always encouraging, from the herbalist that blessed the herbs for me to take. Just everybody. It just seemed like it was so aligned for me. So I just really, again, and two, I appreciate you talking about COVID in the way that you do, because I think it is necessary, and it was just so much just smoke and mirrors with so many other people, with those conversations where it was always very judgmental, or telling people what to do and just pushing their own narrative. So I do appreciate that too, because yeah, it was definitely a scary time, and I think it still is a little tough. I have another family member who got COVID last week, and
Mm.
I was like, yeah, hey, it has not gone anywhere, y'all. Like, and they'd say, okay, what do I do? So I had to give him a
You
whole,
gotta give them the
yeah, I
rundown.
give him a whole rundown. Like, it's in my notes app. So it's like, okay, copy and paste. This is what you do. Just have faith, pray about it. That makes you feel better. Try to relax, get off the internet. Get off the internet.
Screens down. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
just really, really tap in with yourself. So yeah, I think what you said though is it's right on point, because of things being rooted in Blackness or African. Like, it's just like this automatic label of it being bad, and just such a push of people getting further and further away from those tools, excuse me, including tarot, which is another divination tool that you tap into, as well as dream interpretation. And I love that hugely, because one, I'm a big dreamer. Lucid dreams, I've also experienced astral projection.
Mm.
I've witnessed someone I've also witnessed someone experience astral projection as they were passing away or just in transition of them passing away of terminal illness. So I'm like, yo, this is it's wild. Like, no, we don't really talk as much about that beyond, folks have a dream and they're trying to remember and it's like write the dream down and trying to figure out what this is. Um, but I also like to touch on when we're connecting with ancestors through dreams, and that being a way in how they communicate with you, and also I think also just your body, brain, like just being open, having that right frequency to be ready for any type of visitation from them. Um, yeah, I would like for you to share with us how these tools, whether dream interpretation, um, tarot, and astrology, sidereal astrology specifically, how these tools help people navigate oppression in real time. Like I have my way for sure. Um, but yeah, I wanna hear from you, like your perspective on that.
Yeah, for me, none of this is theory.
Mm.
None of this is stuff I read in a book.
Mhm.
It is evidence-based, right? And I think because of how so much of Black spiritual myth, Christian Black myths are, even when we think of the Negro spirituals,
Mhm.
when I get to Jordan or when I get to Zion or, in my father's house, there are many mansions. So much of how our psyche survived slavery and how our bodies and minds and psyches survive these complex webs of oppression is by positioning our peace in death,
Mm.
right? Which is the means by which we are coerced into giving up the tools that we have been given to make heaven here. I actually
Mhm.
have a song I wrote. I don't know if you know, but I'm a musician and artist. That's actually my life before this. I went to performing arts high school. My degree is in vocal jazz. I've done
Wow.
everything from music directing, musical theater, composing for original musical theater. I have my own music that I've put out, and I just started working on music again over the past few years. And one of the songs that I've been working on is called In Heaven as It Is on Earth.
Mm.
Right? And that's kind of like my directive and my calling, even through my work of divination, in that COVID is a really good example, in that so much of actually how a lot of people came to know me was during that first year of COVID.
Okay.
Because what we've witnessed and experienced since then, like the reason why people don't know that when they're sick, it's COVID is because we have been deprived of the material tools and the leadership that should be informing us on the reality that we're navigating. And for me, it was very clear. I have a video from like March 18th or something like that, 2020, where I was actually here in New Orleans visiting a friend. And I said, look, I looked dead in the camera. I said, I know y'all think this is a 2-week thing. I know
Mm.
y'all think this is just a month thing, but we are going to be here at least until 2022, 2023. Imagine how that sounds on March 18th of 2020. Like, imagine how that sounds, right? Like, Dana, please stop. Like, no. But it was clear to me in all of the ways that I'm able to see. And over time, I've developed my own method for predicting COVID waves, and I've never, ever been wrong about when a COVID surge is coming or happening. And so even that piece is how do I navigate the world taking care of a child with chronic illnesses where I literally cannot trust institutions, politicians, and authority figures to tell me the truth about the danger or threat that is lurking. And so when I say divination for liberation, I don't mean some far out future where everybody's happy and they can go back to brunch. I mean, I've saved lives, hundreds, if not thousands, since 2020 by saying, hey, literally tomorrow and Friday, not right now because I haven't looked, but I would say, in
Yeah.
2021, hey, tomorrow, a lot of people are going to get COVID. And if you don't want it to be you, stay home and put on a mask, because I can see with that specificity. So liberation, when we talk about the ways that our ancestors survived. Like, I don't know what people think was really going on. It was like, there's a elder, I used to be a shampoo girl in the beauty shop when I
Mhm.
was a little girl. And the guy who was on the shop, his mother would come through. And I remember she told me this story. She was like, yeah, I remember one time my daughter was sick and such and with such and such. And she told me to get some turpentine and swirl it in my mouth and spit it on the tree or something like that.
Mhm.
That was probably the first time that I'd heard of any hoodoo. I didn't know what it was at the time, but like, this is not about winning capitalism.
Yeah.
This is not about hoarding wealth. Like, don't get me wrong, get your coin, because I'm going to get mine. I'm not that type of spiritual person where I'm about to be suffering. Like, no, pay me,
Yeah.
because I know what I'm doing and I know the value that it's worth. And while I'm fighting capitalism, I still have to survive it. I'm not going to be a martyr suffering. But all of that to say that, like, in the same way that you were like, okay, spirit is calling me to fly down here and take care of this person, that's divination. Like,
Mhm.
divination to me is observing the patterns of existence. That's it. Dreaming is divination, right? Um, it's so many things that are divination, but your capacity to hear and
Yeah.
see is the divination. And we have all kind of tools. I use tarot, I use Bazir, which is a form of Chinese astrology. I use sidereal astrology. I use my own dreams. My dreams are even, I was talking to my dead and ancestors in my dreams before I knew what ancestor veneration was
Mhm.
and what all of that is. Like, my relatives would pass on and come to me
Mhm.
in my dreams,
Wow.
So the liberation for me is surviving the now in a very grounded and material way. And that's what I want people to know, that like, yo, like, realist of talk, like, going and getting a degree and getting a job is not your only way to freedom.
Say that again for the
Going
people in
to
the
get a
back.
degree and getting that check is not the only way to freedom. It's just not. Like, I'm not so woo-woo that I don't know nothing about money,
Period. Okay.
but dead people talk to me and they talk to you, and I've just seen the math add up too many times to call it demonic, because it's keeping me alive. So if keeping myself alive is demonic, I'll be that.
Okay.
Like,
Bring
if
the
you saving
darkness.
your relative's life is demonic, like, I'm the wicked witch of the West, okay? Like, call it whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, but because I'm not about to waste the precious time arguing with someone that's just super convinced already of like what's bad, what's demonic, and also, programmed to be anti-black, because
Yes. That's all what demonic means
that's all it
is black.
is. Anything black, anything that's outside of what white people taught me is bad, and it's it's going backwards. And I'm like, I don't, I love creating the space to have healthy discussions, great conversations, to educate people, to put people on to folks like you because I think also what's the other thing that I believe is happening that's actually really beautiful is that we are all like, a lot of us are finding each other. And
Yeah.
a lot of folks are waking up. A lot of folks are going a little deeper,
Mhm.
whether they are just, becoming aware that they have already been practicing hoodoo, because most of y'all have already
You just don't know
practiced.
that
You
that's what
just
it
don't
is.
know, okay? Goodness, just don't know. And yeah, but I think we're creating communities. We are just connecting in the ATR's community. And I think it's really beautiful. And I think it's this cool, not cool, but because I'm trying to figure out another word for it, but it is a conscious shift that's happening
There's a reason
within
for that.
us. Go ahead.
And you tapped right into it when you were talking about how you navigated your relative's illness
Mm-hmm.
in 2020. There was something specific going on astrologically in that moment that is connected to 2022, and it's connected to right now and the next couple of years, which is in absence of people and systems that you've previously relied on. What's your anchor? It's very clear that this administration is not to be trusted. It is very clear that information and truth and facts are willfully being withheld from us. It is very, very clear that I call them the hierarchies of trust. The hierarchies of trust that we've relied on, like experts
Mm-hmm.
and the CDC, the Department of Education,
Yeah.
right? In absence of those being reliable, what is your anchor? Right? Like literally, how do you know who and what to trust?
Yeah.
And for me, the proliferation of Black people reconnecting to all of the different spiritualities outside of Christianity, whether that's Islam, which, honestly could be understood as an ATR in some,
Yeah.
ways.
Agreed. Yeah.
But even Ifa and Lukumi and all of these other spiritual practices, hoodoo, it is Black people's relationship with spirituality has always been utilitarian. It always has been. And it became more doctrine based and more intellectual, unfortunately, with the birth of the Black middle class and the further we got away from the original enslavement, because it's still slaves, right? In Angola, down here in Louisiana, and so many different places,
Mm-hmm.
the more that we believed that we could escape anti-Blackness through capitalism, the less utilitarian our spiritual technologies and practices will be. I mean, why do you think so many people, whether they admit it or not, believe in some type of prosperity gospel,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because the reality is, like, no shade, them first generations of Black folks that moved to the suburbs in the 70s and the Black doctors and
Mm-hmm.
dentists and lawyers on King Drive in the 50s and 60s, right? Like, it was the first opportunity for so many Black people to reach affluence. And so, of course, your spiritualities would adapt and conform, but the Black middle class is not aspirational anymore
Right.
because it doesn't really exist like that anymore. And so our spiritual tools and technologies have to adapt and to conform to what it is that we need to survive now. And I think that, like, that period in, the mid and late uh 20th century when Black people were accumulating wealth in masses, right? You had so many first generation college students, so many first generation home buyers. And, my mother was a part of a cohort of Black people who got access to really good corporate jobs because they were creating these quotas, right? That
Mm-hmm.
we need to hire this many women, we need to hire this many Black people and put them in management training or whatever, right? And so I'm grateful for all of that. But that was a fever dream. Like, that's what people need to know. That was a fever dream. That is not the reality going forward. And so if your spirituality is not equipping you to survive reality, it's killing you in no uncertain terms. I'm a direct communicator. I ain't never gonna hold back and from saying what it is.
We need that though.
Yeah, yeah, we do, because it's too many people saying what they think people want to hear,
Mm-hmm.
and it's too many people who are beholden to their brand partnerships, and I'm not faulting them.
Yeah.
Get your check,
Yeah.
right? But just mind your business and let me say what I have to say,
Right.
right? And listen to me when I'm talking.
Exactly. And leave other folks alone. Leave some things to white folks. I think that's
Truly.
you know what I'm saying? I think that's the issue I have most of the time. And I mean, I have this platform, even in the spaces that I'm in, like in the nonprofit sector, because that's my background. Besides being in entertainment, having my own charity, um, because of the issue, the center issue, um, I had to break away or break through white women leading
Yeah.
that voice, even if it's the Black body that is the focus for
Mm-hmm.
being served, but yet you have white women saying, but start with us, but hear me
Mm.
out, and I know how to fix this. Bitch,
Mm.
no you don't. So, and it's really interesting having to do that with non-Black people, with the others, I'll just say them.
Mm.
And then also within my own community, um we have our own things, or we have our own issues that we're battling against each other that we don't even have to be battling. That's what I mean when I say a lot of folks, I really want folks to leave these things alone to white people, because
We got our own business to
we
handle.
have our own business to handle, and I refuse to participate in my own erasure or the erasure of
Yeah.
any Black person. Um, I'm just not gonna do it. And liberation, I mean, yeah, because you were talking about that. That's what it's about for me personally. That's why it's important for me to talk about what's been passed down to my grandmother, my mother, and now to me, and sharing that with cousins and even non-relatives. And also why it's important to continue to practice what's been passed down and to openly talk about it, because my folks did not have the luxury of talking about these things publicly.
Mm.
And that's a fact, because I did ask my grandmother about it, and it was still really difficult for her to talk about the practices of her mother,
Mm.
and the things that she didn't agree with that her mother did, or just and also still fighting, because with older generations, a lot of them are also fighting to get through that anti-Blackness that they have themselves
Internalized.
internalized,
Yeah.
and trying to work through, and and helping them navigate that, which I find that to be really precious. And I also look at that as a form of liberation as well, because I think it's going to be difficult to really like break these generational curses, because when people talk about generational curses a lot, I've noticed that people are focused on the money part and not necessarily about any just breaking through like any traumas that might have happened through the family, or just helping an elder get through their own anti-Black beliefs, whether it's, them participating in talking about colorism, um, Even I had a conversation with my grandmother about her calling me fast
Mm,
when I was little, and I was like, that hurt my feelings.
hmm. What she say?
She just looked at me. She just looked at me because I think she was processing, like, what did you do? Like, I
Yeah.
called you fast, so what were you doing?
Right, 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 right. It must have been for a reason. But you know,
Yeah.
that goes back to the point about like the things that Black people call demonic. Like, yes, it's things that are Black, but it is also that which makes us visible and a target to
Yeah.
harm,
Yeah.
right? Like, so anything that will get you strung up a tree is demonic.
Mhm.
Do
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or anything that would draw unnecessary attention to you from the overseer
Yeah.
is demonic.
Yeah.
And we know that the structural basis of the law in this country is so much about anti-Blackness and preventing Black people from existing freely,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I get it. Like, so much of the internalized anti-Blackness is about wanting to keep us from the harm of police and keep us from the harm of vigilante white people who, we won't go into that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that where we are right now is that there is no amount that you can shrink. There is no limit to the disarm white people behaviors that will actually create the life that you want for yourself. Like, ain't skirts long enough, turtlenecks high enough to to keep a man who is enabled to harm women and children and little boys,
Yeah.
right? And girls. There is no outfit chaste enough, right? There is no yes sir, there's no
Yeah.
suit, there's no fade, no
Yeah.
perm, or no properly swooped baby hairs that is going to disarm whiteness from making us a target.
Yeah.
Like, we got to think bigger than that. And I understand people wanting to harness whatever power or control they feel is easily accessible or available, which is usually policing the way that you dress, walk, and talk,
Yeah.
right? Like, that's where it starts, because
Starting with kids. Starting
from
with
the very I
black
was called a
kids.
floozy. I
Oh,
just like,
wow.
you know how it is when you're a Black girl existing in your body, you are sexual.
Yeah.
Like,
Automatically.
you are automatically made to be sexual. I didn't even know what a floozy was. Like, what are did you ever see that TikTok where somebody was like, we need to bring switching back?
No.
Somebody was like, it was a Black person, of course. It was like, we need to bring switching back because people don't switch no more. And it's like, yeah, we were all shamed out of switching.
Yeah. Whipped out of switching, popped,
Listen,
like, yeah.
popped.
No.
Whew. And I
That's
felt
why.
that though, because I know I'm not even a curvy person, but my little 41-year-old body is kind of cute. But it's like,
That's funny. Wow, I haven't heard that in forever. Stop
right,
that
when it was,
switching. I
right,
see
when
you
was
over
the
there
last time you ever
switching.
heard the word switching? Do they even tell little girls that anymore? But it's a testament to how so many of us were sexualized
Yeah.
as children. And, this might be a reach, but so much of our relationship with our womb and with our hips and with our lower body is shaped and formed by trying not to tempt men. That
Mhm.
our pleasure and our freedom from pain and our rest and ability to like flow with the natural cycles of our bodies,
Yeah.
like, that shit is ripped from us out the gate, you know?
And it's rooted in so much that people are not even ready for. They're not ready for that
Yeah.
conversation, especially when we're talking about periods. Even the way
You
in
are
how we
right.
have periods, the way in how we're taught to manage them, being silenced for having a period. Don't let the
Hiding
man see it.
them.
Hiding your
Yeah.
pads, hiding your tampon. Don't talk about it. Don't
You
A
can't even
man
open
shouldn't
a
tell
you
you
can't even open a
anything.
pad in the woman's bathroom. It's making noise. It's like nobody can know I'm on my period. It's just like, girl,
I'm
we all
like,
on our
I don't
period,
have a
okay?
gun in here. It's like, it's literally a pad. Like, the fuck?
It's so true though. It's
And that
so
wasn't a
true.
reach. I promise, Dana, that was not a reach.
Good.
Yeah, because like I said, it's folks are not ready to have that conversation, especially when we're talking about kids, because it definitely, with little girls, our bodies are policed way differently and more intense than little boys are. I'm not saying it doesn't happen to boys, because I
Yeah,
think
but as a
boys,
little black girl,
yeah, no, it's intense, especially with growing up in the Bible Belt. I had a whole episode about that. We could do a
mm,
part 2 if you would like to have a support group, because
listen.
we really need a support group for Black girls in the Bible Belt, because using our natural bodies and natural processes like our period, using it against us, using it, for other narratives, blaming us for being born um, with body parts that eventually create monarchy, the menstrual cycle, and then, we're further later on down the line, we're punished for going through menopause. It
Yo,
just
but you
never
know what?
stops.
You know what though? I am so happy to be going through perimenopause at
Mm,
this time because all of the elder millennials and the Gen X, we're all going through it. And
yeah,
so we talk about it all the time. Every opportunity I get, I am talking about my perimenopause
nice,
experience. I am talking about the herbs that have saved my life. I'm talking about the symptoms. I'm talking about the
nice.
lifestyle changes that I've made because I just don't want shame to be the primary way that I relate to myself and other people. Like, none of this stuff is a secret. None of
Right.
this stuff is like, we all experience it,
Yeah.
and we acting like for somebody to go through it is like, oh, the only person in the world who has ever. And it's just like, we all bleeding every month, boo. Like, please.
Half of the human population has a period.
Yes.
Half of the human population. Millions of us at the same time
Be bleeding
are
on the clock.
bleeding. Seriously. So we really have to stop. First we have to wake up and stop participating in these things, like stop
Hmm.
participating in the stigma. And yeah, and being silenced, because in the end it does hurt us, because we carry that into adulthood where we have doctor's appointments. We're not telling the doctor when we're in pain. We're not being transparent to boyfriends or husbands about our pleasure, and
Yeah.
making that like part of the standard. Yeah, and a lot of it is rooted in shame, and I think even for Black girls, not having the freedom to dance the way that we want to dance
Listen,
without
without
somebody
it
calling
being
it sexual.
like, I feel like I missed my moment
Mhm.
to like really get into my body as a kid
Mm,
because I grew up around all boys. I was
got
the
it.
only girl in the house, and my mother was totally like not.
Mm,
I mean, she definitely was prudish in a lot of ways.
okay.
Um, and so like the internalization of the male gaze was like out the
Mm.
gate for me because I was just like only girl, brothers, my dad, like yeah, it's just a whole thing. It's just a whole thing. But to
But
your
you're not
point of like, yeah,
alone. Yeah, I'm like, there's a lot of us who experience the same things, like with parents, grandparents, folks that we didn't even know.
yeah,
In
the
the
church
culture.
and the community,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's especially in the church, within the community. And a lot of us, I believe, are healing many of those traumas that, we obviously can relate to. But I think a lot of us have made the decision to heal through a lot of these traumas and are working through some form of, or getting to some form of liberation through the tools that we talked about. Um, Getting ready to like wrap up in a little bit. I want to focus this last section. I definitely want to focus on you providing ways and how people can, because this political climate is something, and I'm sure you predicted this. But this political climate is something. Um, and I think it's super important for folks to tap into what the ancestors did during their times, and to not judge them. I do see that a lot. Folks judging and saying I ain't nothing like my ancestors, or just coming at it as this
Right.
in more of like a negative way. Um, and I do see some folks having conversations about just not understanding how the past, or learning about their tools and what they did and how it can help us now. Um, so so I definitely would like for you to tap in with listeners about how divination could, or just different tools can bring us closer, or yeah, I guess I can frame it that way, can bring us closer to liberation, and also navigating this political climate. I'm gonna be real with you right now. I'm one of those people. I've been plotting my exit for the past 2 years. I've been plotting my exit for the past 2 years. One of my best friends put me on to Project 2025, maybe like in 2020, maybe 2022, 2023, if I'm not mistaken. Because I want to say I remember him saying like, "Bitch, we got 2 years to get the fuck out of here,"
Mm.
and that just like blowing my mind. And I'm also a person where I've been traveling like around the world, and I always travel within diaspora, really big traveler, and always said like, no, I'm definitely going to be the person in the family that eventually moves out of the States. Um, and I have felt really passionate about it, and I would say that that's my example of liberation, traveling, not just feeling so tied to the country that I was born in, um, feeling very comfortable with the land. I can honestly say, like, there's land in Alabama that my family still owns that I can still go to. Nobody's like selling that, like the deed has. We're tied
You're
to it.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm comfortable with that, and all, still feel okay with my decision, like, hey, I'm going to continue to travel and figure out my next home, figure out the next where am I going to plant the seed for the next generation, like for my family, that next leg. And I'm totally comfortable with that, and I think for me that's liberation for me as another level, or like that next level. So yeah, I'm what are the tools? What does that look like as far as bringing people closer to liberation, and any tools for navigating this current political climate? Or anything
Yeah.
that's on your heart, honestly.
Yeah. I'm a teacher.
Mhm.
I come from a biological and adopted lineage of pastors, preachers, Bible scholars, deacons, Sunday school teachers, anything that you can imagine. My entire blood and adoptive lineage is from the church. And so that's who my dead people are, and I can't help it. Okay. So my teaching and preaching, I have a few sermons that
Mhm.
I stick to. And one of them is really about defining what liberation is.
Mhm.
So one of my teachings is that revolution begins in the body,
Mhm.
freedom begins in the imagination, And liberation is what happens when we revolt and imagine together. And what I mean by that is that it's really important that we understand liberation to be a group project. I think that anybody can get their individual freedoms, and we absolutely should. I would be on the first plane out of here if I had the means, right? Because I'm raising a child and I just do not see a path forward in this country for him that does not lead to his psychological or physical harm, right? So I'm very careful to understand that liberation is the collective project of imagining our future and executing that together. And that freedom is whatever I can scrounge up on my own. Freedom is tied to my individual survival. Freedom is, we do self-directed learning and unschooling here. Freedom is my kid ain't got COVID because I've kept him home. That's freedom. And I'm down for it because it's kept me alive.
Yeah.
But I understand that unless I participate in the group project of liberation, the conditions that are oppressing me will still be there. The example I always give is that there were a lot of free Black people. There were a lot of free Black people during the times of enslavement, and the problem is that as long as the institution of slavery existed, as long as if your mama was a slave, then you a slave existed, every single Black person, free or enslaved, was in danger of being enslaved. Hello, 12 years a slave.
Yeah.
Right? These things really happen, that you could be free and end up on somebody's plantation or locked up beside somebody's house, breeding slaves
Yeah.
for somebody, right? And so this is why I teach that so clearly. So all of that to be said, that liberation is telling us that there are some things that we can only change together, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so secure your individual freedoms, but also don't forget about the group project of liberation. I think that one of the things that we need to bring back is the expert. As
Mm.
someone who has an expertise and adeptness and an evidenced accuracy and consistency with my work as a diviner, no, you can't be an astrologer. You can't. You cannot read a birth chart. I don't know what it is that you think you're doing, but you're not, right? And yes, some of that is about the pride I take in my work, but a lot of it is understanding that the work that I do is helping people see who they are. That is a position of power and authority that many of us have been on the receiving end of abuse. Even you've talked a lot about
Mm-hmm.
how defensive you get when people try to come tell you who you are. And shout out to your mama for giving you that self-determination and
Yeah.
that pride and sense of self-protection. But so many people are vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
to having somebody else tell them who they are. They're craving for somebody to tell them who they are. And whenever people sit down with me for a reading, I'll be like, listen, I don't know what you think is about to happen here, but sit down, enjoy, put that pen and paper down,
Yeah.
and just be here with me, because what's about to happen here, you have no reference point for
Yeah.
the specificity about which I'm going to tell you about your mama. And I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
tell you about your daddy while your mama was pregnant. I'm really about to get up in your business, right? And so I say that the more that we acknowledge our limitations, the more that we make room for our geniuses to come forth. So in terms of spiritual stuff, I'm not into ATRs. I fully support
Mm-hmm.
people who are into that. And I support it in the sense that you need somebody who knows more than you
Yeah.
and who has more experience than you. And so much of the chaos that we're experiencing right now is the loss of the expert, that
Yeah.
everybody thinks because they got Twitter fingers that now everybody's an astrologer or everyone's a tarot reader.
Talk
And
about it.
we done seen the scams, okay?
Yes.
We done seen the scams. Many of us have been victimized by the scammers, right? And
Mhm.
I'm not naming no names of scammers because that's just petty. But people know,
Yeah.
right? And part of that is like, yo, in the same way that people knew who they could go to if they needed to get the law off their back, people knew who to go to when they needed some prayer
Yeah.
with some hands being laid on, right? They knew who they could go to when they were having trouble conceiving and wanted to have a baby.
Mhm.
They knew who to go to. And so in so many ways, that's the role that I play. And there are so many other adept spiritualists and diviners who can play that role for you. But I would encourage everybody to find and create spiritual community for ourselves.
Yeah.
So many of us who grew up in the
Mhm.
Black church are thirsty for that sense of belonging and community. And we know we can't go back to the church because it's too transphobic and homophobic and capitalist.
That
So don't
part.
go back to the church, right?
Yeah.
Create your own spiritual community. The last thing that I want to say is this. We are in a time and a season. You're not going to make it if you don't have a relationship with your dreams. You are not going to survive if you're not listening while you sleep. 'Cause dreams to me are the form of divination that everybody has access to. And
Mhm.
if you're not dreaming or you can't remember your dreams, I'm not going to tell you to put a book by your bed. I'm going to tell you to stop drinking caffeine. And I'm going to tell you to put the weed down for a month. And I'm going to tell you to take your ass to bed and make sure your sleeping environment is safe and comfortable. I'm going to tell you to take some L-theanine so your cortisol levels can come down, right? I'm going to tell you to lay off the sugar. I'm not going to give you no spiritual remedy. I'm going to tell you that, like, you know what you're doing as to why you can't sleep. Right. I'm going to tell you to break up with that nigga who's emotionally abusive.
Ooh, I
Right.
knew it was coming. I was like,
Right.
yes, say it.
Right.
Say it.
Because y'all be like, I'm a woo woo ass bitch. Don't get me wrong. But also, like, half the problem is you don't shit every day.
Yeah.
You know, like these things are not mutually exclusive. All right. You've been locked up for a week. And it's really because you can't tell the truth to that nigga about how he's treating you.
Yeah.
You locked up on both ends, right?
Yeah.
So all of that to say, divination and spirituality, it's so much more accessible than people think it is. You got the internet out here. You have networks of people who you can direct you to spiritualists and spiritual
Mhm.
voices you can trust. But I'm going to tell you right now today that you are not going to survive the foreseeable future unless you have a relationship with your dreams, because there are too many people who are lying to you and don't know that they're lying. And there are too many other people who are lying and do know that they're lying. And you're not going to be able to tell the difference unless you have some relationship with your intuition that can help you discern when what is in front of you is untrustworthy, when the voices that you would normally rely on are no longer trustworthy. So you need to be making sure that you're dreaming. And if you feel so called to go get a tarot deck, do that, but stay off this internet trying to give people readings. Mind your business and figure out how to come up with a practice for yourself. Not everything that you pick up needs to be a business.
Oh,
Sometimes that's for you to talk to your dead people. Leave us out of it. All right, I'm off my horse. I finished ranting.
no. I love it. This is why we are here. This
Yes.
has been such a fulfilling conversation. This is why we're here, though, because these things needed to be said, because we see it. I see it all the time. Wanted to monetize every single thing.
Especially during COVID, like,
Yeah.
yes, I'm going to knock the hustle. Cut it out.
Yeah. And now it's carrying over into just other shit that nobody needs. And it's getting in the way, especially within this community. I appreciate you so much, because
Thank
it
you.
really needs to be said. And because earlier, I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly what you said earlier, but I had thought about asking you your opinion of about every other person on social talking, not necessarily just talking about astrology, but coming at it as if they are the expert,
Or
and
as if they
that,
have any idea what they're talking about.
yeah, yeah, because it's a lot of that. I almost feel like I've seen like a uptick maybe in like the last year and a half, 2 years, where it's a shift
I
now.
think, you know what I think though? I think that like for white people, excuse me,
Mhm.
the astrological rebirth was like in the 2010s.
Mhm.
I think black people are just now catching up. Because, you know, black
Okay.
people are behind. Black people got their Christianity hangups. I think black people are like, oh, we can talk about science now. Oh, we can,
Mhm.
we can, we
Mhm.
can dig into. Yes, you can, boo. You've been free for a long time, actually. But I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. And not to be too heavy on people, because I understand when something is new to you, you are so excited and you want to tell everybody about it. And I love that. But also remember that there is this dope ass, intelligent ass Black woman named Dayna Lynn Nuckolls, who has been innovating in the astrological sciences, created her own system of astrology called Divination for Liberation, sidereal astrology, that will get your life together. Like, always remember that wherever you see a white person doing something, wherever you hear white voices the loudest, just know that there's a Black woman somewhere who done flipped that shit on his head and is doing it better and more applicable to your life than you could have ever comprehended.
Ladies and gentlemen, and non-binary,
Ladies and ladies.
okay, Dayna Lynn Nuckolls. We don't even need to plug, sis. You're gonna find out. You're gonna figure out where to find
Absolutely.
her. You're
If
gonna
you
figure
don't
out where to
know,
find her. Obviously, we're gonna tag all the things, the necessary things for people to contact you. Thank you so much. This has been fun. Like, I knew it was gonna be off the chain. My sidereal Virgo sun heart is
I
just
knew that Mercury, it was mercurial all up in this piece. I was like, is it Gemini or Virgo? Which one is it?
okay. So me, Virgo sun, Gemini moon,
I
rising is
clocked it out the gate.
Taurus on both sides, tropical and sidereal Taurus rising. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I'm not sure if it was like a while back when I looked it up on a different site. I don't remember. It was before discovering. No, I discovered you, but I feel like it was a different site, and the site like changed the platform, like when you insert your
Was it
information.
AstroSeek? That's one
Maybe.
that people use a lot
Okay. But
to do
I
their sidereal chart, that is.
got, yeah, yeah, but well, my point was like the first time I did it, I came back as a double Gemini. But I
Mm.
think when I
Yeah,
did it
that would
this,
be impossible.
yeah, because it was like Gemini moon and Gemini rising.
Okay.
But no, when I redid it and I put my time and everything, then it was like Taurus rising, Gemini
Yeah, I
moon, and
clocked the
then
Gemini out the
yeah.
gate because I collect Gemini moons like Pokemon.
Ooh, do
Like,
tell.
like the number of men
Okay.
that I've dated who have Gemini moons, sidereal Gemini moons, and just like all my friends have Gemini something.
Oh,
And I
okay, got
know
it.
that if our conversation is flowing, if we just get on and we're yapping, oh, you got Gemini.
Yeah,
You got
yeah,
Gemini.
yeah.
Cause me and Gemini are going to yap until the sun goes down and it comes up the next morning.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate what you've created and all the work that you're doing. I think it's to me it felt like another level to me
Mm.
using astrology as a tool. Cuz yeah, I would say I definitely felt comfortable in my learnings and the way I practice, like from the way my mom taught me, like up to being an adult. However, yeah, with this one, because it was new. It was a new set of knowledge, and it just made it for me. It felt like this is tapping into who I am now. or even like becoming. Because I felt like it was always there were so many changes going through during the pandemic, discovering folks like you, Miss Cat, and connecting with the community because we, like I said, we as a family just talked amongst ourselves.
Mm,
And that was just it as far as the practice and how we live our lives. But now, like having a community, having more safe spaces to have these open conversations and to just
yeah.
learn more. Even with Miss Cat, the Hungry Medium, she talks about Chiron a lot.
That's her thing, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, and I told her, I was like, this is really beautiful how there's no judgment. We're all learning from each other. And, this Sidereal is your thing, Chiron's her thing. And it's such this it's community. It's just
Yeah.
it's true community. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the key. The rant was needed.
I appreciate it 'cause they be piling up in my spirit.
Let it out, please. Please let it out. This is the space. I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Thank you again. All right, y'all. I know y'all learned something, so I'm not even gonna ask y'all if y'all learned anything. Let us know any feedback in the comments. Thank you for listening. You have been listening to The Practice of a Hoodoo Baptist. This is my altar, my process, my truth, where I honor those who came before me and speak what was once kept in silence. Covered by spirit, guided by blood. Until next time, peace.